What is happening, NJ Gamer Dude here, and I am looking at the new TCG ban list, and I know I'm a week late off of this video, but I kind of just wanted to sit down, take it in, and just think to myself, man, I completely forgot that this was actually a release because people have been demanding for a new ban list in quite some time. So let's actually have a look at the May 2023 ban list. So first and foremost, we're going to look at all of the newly forbidden cards. So first and foremost, we have Cyberstein, which, let's be completely honest, ever since Cyberstein was banned, and for a decent amount of time, the fact that they limited it before, rebanning it, like, there was no reason for this card to come back. It was always going to be an OTK generator and continues to be one because as time goes on, the power level of the game is going to keep increasing, and those fusion monsters are going to become more and more complex. Whether it be that you bring out a card like Nature Exterior and then kind of go from there, you know, like you've got options. Actually, it's not, yeah. Oh yeah, no, it's just fusion specific monsters from the extra deck. I thought it was also other types of extra deck monsters, but no. Yeah. So being able to special summon or cheat out extra deck monsters, like 5,000 life points is just not enough of a cost at the end of the day, I feel like. And a lot more restrictions do need to be put on this card in order to be usable in the current day and age. So it's still broken and will continue to be broken for as long as there are broken extra deck monsters. Well, specifically, again, like I said, fusion monsters. But that's just my thought on Cyberstein. Next we have is Super Heavy Samurai Scarecrow. OCG still got this at 3 copies. TCG currently so is banned pretty much. Released in January of last year, and this is the only Link Super Heavy Samurai. I don't believe I've seen other Link-based Super Heavy Samurai, but this is kind of in the same realm as like a lot of Link 1 monsters, where you've got like Link 1 monsters. There's a good reason why like extra deck monsters require more than one piece of material to summon, because you actually need to you have to think about the cost and of what you're paying versus what you're getting, and whether or not the cost is actually a benefit that adds to the value of the monster you're summoning. But with Link 1 monsters, you just give up one monster and then you get a really good card, and most Link 1 monsters generally tend to be completely broken anyways. So I can kind of understand why Super Heavy Samurai Scarecrow did end up getting hit, because it is a great card and has a brilliant effect for a Link 1. Moving on from that, we have number 89, Diabolosis the Mind Hacker, and this card is specifically used with Kashtira, which is the current meta, like it's currently one of the biggest meta contenders in the TCG area. And this is actually a massive hit to Kashtira, because while it's not technically a Kashtira monster, it very much facilitates their effects of being able to block out being able to banish opponent's monsters, cards, and things like that. And yeah, it facilitates that sort of playstyle of getting rid of cards, so you can then use your Kashtira Arise Heart to then start blocking out opponents' zones and things like that. So they're getting rid of pretty much one of the key components to a Kashtira deck. Who knows if this is going to be like sort of just before, like, let's say the next ban list, they might start like now actually hitting Kashtira monsters, but we don't really know where that's going. So next on the list, we have Appointer of the Red Lotus, which is a normal trap card, and it is the sort of weaker version of Trap Dashut, which is currently a banned card. So Appointer of Red Lotus has been banned, and I'm confused, man. Like, getting information on your opponent's hand, sure, but like, Trap Dashut will never be unbanned, I feel like, moving forward, unless it gets a really, really heavy errata. And a Pointer of Red Lotus is essentially an incredibly, like, a much more restrictive version of that. I'm pretty sure it was also previously banned before it was limited, before now returning to sort of banned status, so that's interesting to see. Yeah, the fact that they sort of also, like, put it into a limited state before rebanning it, I think they were just kind of like trying to test the waters of like what a pointer could do in that sort of meta state. But this one was more of a confusing one to me because I feel like you could have still kept it at one copy unless I'm missing something there. Next we have is Branded Explosion. Tribute 1 fusion monster, target 2 non-fusion monsters that are banished or in the graveyard. Special summon both monsters on each field. If you tributed a fusion monster that mentions Fallen of Albaz, as mentioned, to activate this card, you can special summon both monsters to the field in defense position. You can only activate one Branded Expulsion, per turn. Why did I say explosion? It's expulsion. This just gives you too much advantage, given that you are going to be playing Branded Expulsion with the idea of, with like say Mirror Jade or other types of fusion monsters that do mention Fallen of Albaz, so most likely you are going to be able to get something good out of it. So I can see it working incredibly well, and it being quite beneficial as well. Not too sure why it got banned though. I feel like it could have been limited, but maybe it's because, I do understand like branded decks are quite all over the place, but it's not that prevalent to see Branded Expulsion being that problematic. But I'm just speaking sort of like from my perspective. Moving on from that, so those are sort of like the newly banned cards. Next we're going to be looking at the newly limited, and in this case we have Blaster, Dragon Rule of Infernos. We actually have another Dragon Ruler return. So we had the Dragon Ruler of Storms, which was never really like much of an issue. And now we've got Dragon Ruler of Infernos, because Dragon Rulers each have their own attributes. So the Wind attribute was just fine and the least broken of the lot. And now Blaster seems to have returned. Which is interesting. I don't think we'll actually see all of the Dragon Rulers return, but maybe they're kind of testing the waters with Blaster at the moment. I can't really tell what Konami is thinking by like sort of unbanning this card. But I digress. Moving on from that, we have Mathmech Circular, which is the searcher for the Mathmech archetype and makes Mathmech a lot more consistent in use. Oh, this is actually... I didn't realize Mathmech Circular was such a recent card. It only released in January 10th, 2023. I thought it was around for longer than that, but maybe I'm just misremembering here. But yeah, Mathmech Circular is pretty much what makes Mathmech engine really good, and Circular is always a must. I feel like this is definitely going to bring down the use of Mathmech cards and monsters, and essentially the Mathmech engine if you are considering using that, because you would never make a deck purely around Mathmech, but also it's not a particularly fun group of cards to play against. But then again, that's kind of what happens whenever you've got like... That's usually the sentiment when you're playing against a deck that you can't really do much about because you didn't put that much thought into creating your own deck. So, interesting choice to limited. It's still unlimited in OCG, but again, OCG is its own beast and all the rest of it. Next we have is Frame Gear Gamma, one of the strongest hand traps in all of Yu-Gi-Oh! Essentially. Which can pretty much... Oh man, like you could essentially special summon this monster and then negate the activation of an effect from a monster effect on your opponent's side of the field, and then destroy that monster, which is more than what most cards do, which is just deny the activation and destroy, but on top of that you get another body on the field. So that's kind of what makes it one of the best. Was it always limited in OCG? I didn't actually realize, but yeah, there's a bit of consistency here, as with Blaster, limited on both TCG and OCG. I don't really follow much in relation to the actual like Master Duel list because it changes once a month, but it's kind of just interesting to see how Konami is wanting to sort of move Yu-Gi-Oh, especially the TCG, in a particular direction. But yeah, Cyframe Gear Gamma goes into a limited state as of now. Next we have is Den Long, First of the Yangzing, and I can understand why this card in particular would be limited. It's because of I think it was called the Pillars of the Yangzing, or was it the 9 Pillars of the Yangzing, which Deng Long can easily search out and is pretty much an Omni Negate for Yangzing decks. So being able to easily access an Omni Negate at any time through an extra deck monster with some level of hyper consistency, yeah, can be seen as kind of problematic, and kind of what makes this monster a little bit more balanced is its stats as being at 0 attack and 2800 defense. And Deng Long does appear on the actual card art of that particular trap card that is the Omni Negate, so an interesting thought to have. But yeah, next one we have here is Kashtira Arise Heart, which is one of the main cards in the Kashtira archetype. So we had Diabolosis, which was kind of like a major piece of support for the actual playstyle. But on this case, Kashtira Arise Heart is actually one of the 2 main monsters of the Kashtira archetype. So we're already getting there. I mean, Kashtira Shangri-La was the other one, of course. And essentially, if you activate the effect of Shangri-La, you can then just summon Arise Heart on top of it. Yeah. So, interesting. Has a similar effect to Diabolosis, but it looks like we're seeing Kashtira slowly get hit. But then we have Pearly Delicious Memory, which makes which adds consistency to Pearly cards, and this only recently came out with the newest pack that released. I can't remember what it's called exactly, but literally the newest pack that released has started adding Pearly monsters to it, and Delicious Memory just so happened to be among them. To which I have to say, wow, that was quick. Suddenly hitting Pearly monsters, which seem to also be a potential meta contender as well. But it hasn't seen any YCSs topping YCSs just yet, so I think they're trying to nip a potentially problematic archetype in the bud immediately before sort of, going ham with it. That's what I'm thinking, and I haven't heard much about Pearly Delicious Memory just yet, so it'll be interesting to see how that goes. And the finally newly limited to 1 copy per deck card we have is Naturia Sacred Tree, which is a continuous trap card, and if this card is sent to the graveyard, you can add 1 Naturia card from your deck to your hand, except Naturia Sacred Tree. You can use one of the following effects per turn, and only once that turn, which is you can special summon. You can tribute 1 Earth Insect monster, special summon 1 level 4 or lower Earth Plant monster from your deck. Or you can tribute 1 Earth Plant type monster and special summon 1 level 4 or lower Earth Insect type monster from your deck. And the interesting thing about Naturia Sacred Tree is that it's pretty much just allowing you to swap between an Earth Insect and an Earth Plant type monster, which you can then go off and then start, doing your extra deck plays with. And once it gets destroyed and sent to the graveyard, it pretty much allows you to search out another Naturia card. So it's an excellent searcher with its floating effect on top of being able to play around manipulate the actual presence of your field in order to be able to go off and do your extra deck plays. And I mean, level 4 or lower is not really much of a restriction. In fact, everything about this card is a benefit. So looking at it, I can absolutely understand why this card was limited, knowing that cards like Naturia Exterio currently exist. Moving on from that, though, we have the newly semi-limited to 2 cards. So we have Herald of Orange Light, which was previously limited, now semi-limited. With all of the hits that have happened to the Tearlaments cards, Herald of Orange Light getting a slightly more lenient position makes a bit of sense. So I feel like that's kind of what's happened here. They've become a bit more lenient on this particular card because they're actually kind of getting rid of some of the other fairy type monsters that may cause a bit of an issue, specifically the Shizu cards. Next we have is Kashtira Unicorn, the final hit to the Kashtira archetype, being now sort of semi-limited. And Kashtira Unicorn is essentially a searcher for the Kashtira archetype. Fascinating to see what's happening to Kashtira at the moment, but it'll be fascinating to see what happens moving forward. Is Kashtira still going to be as sort of usable, given that there's a hit on its searcher? Granted, it's only semi-limited. One of its main boss monsters, a Rise Heart in this case, is now just limited to 1 copy, and you've completely lost one of its major support cards in the phase, in the name of Diabolos the Mind Hacker. Lightning Storm, this one's confusing to me. It got hit to semi-limited. Is it just being used too much? Is that why it's... Because most people only really have 2 copies in their deck, so I don't know why semi-limiting it is... Maybe they just want to rein in its power level a little bit. This one does have me thinking a little bit, and I don't know what to think, so we'll just kind of leave it at that. Runic Fountain. Yeah, I guess they're trying to rein in Runics as well, apparently, not just Lightning Storm. It is what it is. Yeah, that's what it feels like at the moment. The thing is that Sky Strike Immobilize Engage, on the other hand, has gone from... I'm pretty sure it was semi-limited before, No, it was limited before, and now is going to be semi-limited. Whereby... The thing is that in order for Sky Strikers to work, you do need to use Mobilize Engage, because the main thing about it is that it's the deck's main searcher, and if it's limited, it will barely not... it will never be used. If it was unlimited, it's going to be used a decent amount. Like, you'll see it a lot in the meta. I'm fascinated to see what it's going to do semi-limited. We know what happens when it's limited, when it's unlimited. So what does semi-limited do to a deck that requires a card like Mobilize Engage, which is essentially its searcher, and at the same time allows you to be able to draw cards off of its effect? It'll be interesting. It'll be fascinating to see, and I'll be interested to see kind of what the meta representation is going to be after this. Finally, we have is Sprite Starter, which is a quick play spell card and allows you to special summon 1 Sprite monster from your deck, but lose life points equal to its original attack. Also, for the rest of this turn, after this card resolves, you cannot special summon monsters, except level, rank, or link 2 monsters. You can only activate the effect of 1 Sprite Starter per turn. The restrictions hardly matter for a Sprite Starter, because again, it's only ever going to be level 2, link 2, or rank 2 monsters regardless. But it is an incredible searcher, and so it looks like they're trying to rein in a little bit of so they are definitely reining in the power of searchers with Sprite Starter, Kashtira Unicorn, Mathmix Circular, what other searches have we got? Naturia Sacred Tree, yeah, so with searches, they're certainly sort of going a little bit ham on them, and Then you've got cards like they're trying to rein in the power of Runic with the Runic Fountain, which is an absolute must for the Runic deck. Sprite Starter, which isn't necessarily a must, but a very, very beneficial effect. Lightning Storm confuses me. They let go of Herald of Orange Light due to the reining in of the power of Ishizu Tailment. And then you've got stuff like Dinglong, which is again another searcher, but generally for its archetype specific Omni Negate. So yeah. Again, Blast is a confusing one, but let's see how it goes. Hopefully it works well, and they, bring back a few more of the Dragon Rulers. I think all the baby rulers should be just fine, I think. But yeah, finally we now have, all of these newly unlimited cards being Blackwing Steam the Cloak, which is an interesting one. Gen X Ally Birdman, I don't think that'll see a lot of play, to be completely honest. Samsara Lotus, which was let go of for it was banned for potentially being able to be easily loopable, so we'll see how that goes for it. Spiral Quick Fix. The Spiral cards have gotten hit quite a bit, so you know what? I think Quick Fix is fine to leave. Recital Starling, this was previously semi-limited, not sure why, it would have been better off just being unlimited. Draco Face Off, and finally Sky Striker Mecha Modules multi-roll, which I didn't even realize was actually on the limited list at all. I think the released on dates are actually for Meta... No, not Meta, Master Duel, but I digress. Those were the changes to the TCG ban list. Let me know what you guys thought about these in the comments below, and feel free to also correct me on any of the thoughts that I've provided so far. But it seems like a general shift, a lot of different things got hit, and there's a decent amount of searches in there, which means a lack of consistency for certain types of decks. So it'll be interesting to see how things are moving forward, and how especially the hits to Kashtira are going to be moving on. Until then, I'll see you guys next time.